Hi there! Welcome back to my hot kitchen. I'm Wendy, and I'm very excited for you to try tonight's romantic meal. It's an Artisan Admiral platter featuring stuffed shrimp, clams on the half shell, calamari, and a creative take on fish and chips featuring sweet potato tots. On the side, a delicious little cucumber jicama coleslaw. So let's get started on that. The first thing that I'm going to do is cook my clams. Now, since I'm working with live clams, I've kept them in the fridge. Got them packed in ice and a nice cool cloth on top to keep them live and happy. And I'm going to go over here and put them in a nice little steaming pot. Now before I go ahead and commit to cook them, I'm going to go through each of them one at a time and make sure that the clams are all still closed. If they're open, that means that they've died and they're no longer good to eat. Makes a big difference when you keep them right. Like I said, I had them packed in ice and covered with a cool damp cloth. And that seems to make a big difference in how many stay fresh. When you're buying your clams, you want to buy them the afternoon before you cook them that same evening, just to ensure the freshness of flavor, freshness of taste. So now this part's really simple. I'm just going to turn it on to a nice medium-high temperature and steam them until they all pop open. Probably going to be anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes before that happens. Now I'm going to wash off my hands and get ready to move on to the next step. So on the clams on the half shell, there's going to be two garnishes. There's going to be a parsley puree and there's going to be a little hot chili sauce. Now the parsley puree is actually going to start out as a gremolata, and then we're going to treat it like a pesto. So I'm going to take my parsley and my lemon zest and my garlic and chop them up a little bit. I'm just going to harvest the zest of about half of a nice big lemon here. Remember when you're zesting to just harvest the top layer. Once you've worked down into the white part of the citrus, you've moved past the sweet part and into the bitter section. Now work on this garlic clove here. This is peeled and trimmed garlic clove. I'm just going to chop it down a little bit. And then just run my knife through this a few times and sort of pre-chop it before we puree it. It's going to help it to have a more even consistency. That looks like that'll be a good head start there. Now I'm going to take all this lovely aromatic parsley, garlic, and lemon zest and put it in a nice little measuring cup. And then it's time to turn it into a puree. Like I said, very similar to a pesto. So we're going to take olive oil and pretty much cover it. And maybe a squeeze of lemon juice just to bring out the bright flavors. It's also going to help to prevent any browning that might happen. Then, you can take a little hand mixer here and just work it until it's a nice smooth paste. This is now at a really happy place. I'm going to give it a little taste here. That's really good. You can taste the fresh lemon, the fresh parsley. I'm going to add a little salt to really bring it out of its shell. That is amazing. What a great compliment to fresh seafood. One more little taste here. So good. You got to try this. Go, set that off to the side, and then it's time to go back over and check on the clams. Oh, they are just starting to come into fruition here. I'm going to put the lid back on because I want them all to be opened up like that one. So I'm going to get my counter cleared off here because those clams are almost ready and I'm going to need a little workspace here. All this stuff, put it over there out of the way, and grab a nice pretty little plate because we're going to chill them down on there. Well, look at all these happy little guys. The shells have busted open, which means the clams are done. Let's get these off the heat. So I'm going to chill them down in my sink here. I'm just going to take the pot and start running cold water in it. And as the strainer cools off, I'm going to pull that out, separating it from the hot water that's in the pan. And just start cooling down the clams a bit. Make them easy to handle. Give them a little shake out here. And bring them back over this way. Then I'm going to start pulling them out of the strainer basket, ripping off one half of the shell and placing them on this nice little platter here. The top half of the shell rips off really easily. Nice little twist, and it's free. Oh, there's where that one goes. And these are going to be decorated up with that gorgeous gremolato pesto that you just made, and a little bit of chili sauce to bring out the spice. And what's better is you're going to allow them a little bit of time to cool down in the fridge, and they're going to really absorb the flavors of the gremolata and the chili sauce. And now these tasty little guys are all ready to receive their garnish. So I'm going to grab a nice little spoon here and put a cute little dollop of this delicious gremolata pesto on one side of the clams. I'm going to dot up each and every one of them. And now, with the green gremolata on there, I'm going to add a little dollop of delicious red chili sauce. This is the classic sriracha rooster sauce to complement the color and the flavor of these yummy little clams. And now, with these little beauties all done, it's time to put them back in the fridge. As they chill down, they're going to absorb the flavors of the chili sauce and the gremolata and develop into a beautiful cold addition to the Artisan Admirals platter. So in this pot here, we have one sweet potato, medium size, that has been peeled and then grated. It's been simmering like this for a couple minutes now, and that's really all the time it needs. Now it's time to drain it off. So I have a very fine mesh colander over here. I'm just going to pour those out. I hit them with just a splash of cold water to cool them down. And I'm going to grab a spatula so that I can squish the water out of them. And this is going to form the basis of the sweet potato tots. There we go. Those look pretty good and dry. I'm going to bring them back over here and drop them into this nice mixing bowl. Get it all in there. I'm going to add a half cup of regular old flour and about 1/8 of a cup of sour cream. Now when you're going to pick out your sour cream, you will get the best flavor from the sour cream that has the least number of ingredients on there. So look for that when you're buying it. I'm also going to add a couple tablespoons of Cajun seasoning. And Cajun seasoning is lovely because it's so complex, and quite often it's quite salty, so it does the job of salting these sweet potato tots quite well. Crack an egg into it. And take my little whisk here and work that egg. Want to work it, scramble it a little bit before I mix it into the rest of the sweet potato tot mixture. And I'm done with the whisk. I'm going to opt for a spatula now and fold all these yummy ingredients together. And this is going to form the inside of a sweet potato tot. Now, who doesn't love a tater tot? And who wouldn't love a sweet potato tot? Blend those together. I want to see a nice even mixture. Scrape everything off the sides of the bowl. And then it's time for the next step. So grab some sort of scooper. You can use your hands too if you like. And scoop off little portions of the sweet potato tots. And then you're going to want to drop them in breadcrumbs. That's going to give them a nice crisp outside coating. And it's also going to make them a little bit easier to handle here. Now in this state, they're going to be quite delicate. So you're going to want to use all of your fingers to move them out of the breadcrumbs right onto the baking pan. The baking pan is really here as a way for you to cool these down and make them more manageable, because we're actually going to deep fry them. Well, here is my last sweet potato tot. Looks like I was able to get about 7 out of there. And now, you saw how delicate these little guys were. So I'm gonna go ahead and pop them in the freezer, and that's gonna firm them up substantially. Whoa, come on, get in there. Now I'm gonna wash off my hands. And now it's time to get the batters prepped for the calamari and the fish. You want to get these batters prepped in advance of deep frying them so that everything times out well and you have a nice smooth presentation for your sweetie. So the first batter that I'm going to whip up is going to be based on a tempura batter, and it's going to be what we use for the calamari. So that's a half cup of cake flour there. I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder. And then I'm going to whisk them together to blend the dry ingredients. Not going to get too fussy with that. Just want to get it started. And the next ingredient is some nice cold beer. Anywhere from 1/3 to 3/4 of a cup. So I want to whisk that in. I'm using an amber ale because I like the flavor that it imparts in the batter. Fold it together. But don't fold it together so much that you lose all the little lumps of flour. I want to see a little bit thinner consistency than that. Just want it to gently coat the fish. You don't want it to glob on there. That is going to be just about perfect right there. So let's move on to the next batter. Kind of a similar principle. Only this time I'm using a 1/4 cup of that delicious cake flour for the nice light texture, and a 1/4 cup of ground up pecans. And to season it up, about a teaspoon of Cajun seasoning, 1/4 teaspoon of white pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, and a teaspoon of classic chili powder. Once again, blending it together first. And then in this particular recipe, you're going to use ice water. Again, you want to get that same sort of consistency. Just want it to coat the fish. You don't want it to be really globular on there. And with this batter, it's okay if you whisk out lumps. You don't have to, but if you do, you won't ruin your batter. And now with the batters prepared, you can step away from those and turn your attention to the coleslaw. So I've got a nice little wedge of red cabbage here, and I'm going to cut that into a very fine chiffonade. Now, anytime that I serve a fatty meal like this one, I always like to make sure there's a nice fresh salad to help make it digest well and to counter the heavy taste. So coleslaw is a perfect answer on a night like this. It's all fresh and bright and crisp. There we go. A little chop action there. And then take that gorgeous red coleslaw and just drop it in your bowl. I like mine to be a little bit on the chunky side. You can cut yours however you like. Next item is going to be some green onion, for that fresh onion flavor. So a nice little slice here. Now the great thing about this coleslaw is that it features some fun and different ingredients. I've got some jicama and some cucumber in mind for this one. And the end result is going to be so beautiful to look at and even prettier to taste. Got some radishes, 3 of them here that I've sliced into nice little rounds. And this part, I'm going to need a grater, so I'm actually going to grate the cucumber into the salad. It's nice and fine this way, and it blends really nicely with the coleslaw. And for this recipe, I definitely recommend leaving the skins on. 1 for texture, 2 for color, and 3 for nutrition. If you think about it, most of the vegetable's nutrition is stored in the skin. So you're definitely going to want to get that in your sweetie. You're also going to need some lemon juice, about half a lemon's worth. Remember, that's quite a subjective measurement, so you can even use a few squeezes of lemon. And it's quite all right to get some chunks of the lemon itself in there. Just adds that extra yummy flavor. There's one more ingredient to chop up and add into here, and that's going to be a little jicama. So the jicama I'm going to cut up into nice little matchstick sized strips. Nice little thin things so that they break down easily. The jicama has a coarser, thicker texture than any of the other ingredients in there. So it's definitely going to be notable when you go to eat it. But it also takes on the flavors really well. So I think you will enjoy it as an addition in this coleslaw recipe. Now give it a little toss and allow the lemon juice to coat all the vegetables. Just enhances the flavors, brightens the colors a little bit, and starts them on their breaking down process. It's a nice little salad. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Once you see that all the vegetables are glossy, that's your indicator that the lemon juice has been tossed through. Go ahead and add an ounce of rice vinegar or other mild white vinegar, and a couple tablespoons of white sugar. And a couple dollops of mayonnaise, about 2 tablespoons worth of that as well. And then toss this together. Remember to season it up with a little salt and pepper to taste. You want all the ingredients in here so that as the coleslaw sits, it develops a lovely, lovely flavor to complement your Admirals platter. Yum. Great, this can go in the fridge right next to those little clams. That is going to be awesome. So any good Admirals platter is definitely going to need a nice little tartar sauce to go along with it. Super simple to make here. Got about 1/8 cup of mayonnaise, and that is the zest of half a lemon. We already talked about lemon zesting, so we're not going to talk about it again. And a little bit of sweet relish, about 1 tablespoon's worth. Mix that together. Add to it a little bit of that yummy sriracha chili sauce for a little spice, and a little squeeze of lemon to really enhance that flavor. Yum. And just mix that together. This is going to be a great complement to the calamari and the fried fish. You're going to love this. Most importantly though, your sweetie's really going to dig on this. Once it's mixed, just put it in a cute little ramekin or some other sort of adorable little serving dish, and then you're done. That's really yummy. So now it's time to talk about the stuffed shrimp. So you want to acquire a few very large shrimp. I think these are the under 15 count is what they call this. And my experience is that usually these shrimp come raw, and they come with shells on them, which I've already taken off, and they still have the veins in there. So you definitely want to devein them. So just slice in there with the tip of your knife and pull out the vein and anything that comes along with it. My philosophy with seafood is that if it comes along with what you're pulling out, you don't want to eat it anyway. Set that way off to the side. Finish butterflying it by drawing the tip of your knife fairly deep into the little shrimp, but not deep enough to cut all the way through it. And flop it out. And go over there with its buddies that I've already prepped. It's interesting that sometimes the vein is on the front and sometimes the vein is on the back of the shrimp. I guess it just depends on what type of shrimp you're working with. And these shrimp are wild-caught American shrimps. They're going to be really good, high-quality shrimp. Next thing is to lay them out here on a little baking pan. I've chosen to cover mine with foil to make the cleanup process super easy. And the next thing to do is to whip up the stuffing. So it's going to be a breadcrumb-based stuffing. I've got about a half cup of unseasoned breadcrumbs, about a tablespoon of dried basil, a glob of butter, about a tablespoon's worth, 1 minced up scallion, and approximately half a lemon's worth of zest. To that, I'm going to be adding about 1/4 cup of grated Mizithra cheese. I'm going with the Mizithra cheese because I love its fresh, bright flavor. I'm going to blend all these together here. Work that butter into the crumb. Oh, yummy. The Mizithra cheese is fun because it doesn't really melt. It's such a fresh cheese, it kind of holds its shape. But it still works with the breadcrumbs to hold it all together. It's really kind of cool additive to the stuffing for the shrimp here. Once you've got the butter mixed in there, you just want to take the stuffing and squeeze it down and plop it right on top of these butterflied shrimp. Yum! Just imagine your sweetie eating this while you're prepping it. And put lots of love into it. Each little squeeze gives it a little more love. A little bit more love adds a little bit more flavor. Makes your romantic meal taste even better. Excellent. I'm going to wash my hands next because I just handled the raw shrimp. And now it's ready to start frying. Frying time. Let's start with the sweet potato tots. So, you're going to want to work in small batches here. So I'm just going to try 4 at a time first. They're nice and frozen now, so that means they're going to hold their shape beautifully. Let's put them in and plunge them down. Watch them go. And just after you've dropped those in the oil, you can go ahead and get the shrimp started. So I've got my toaster oven pre-warmed here. I've got it set on 400 degrees. I'm just going to slide these little guys in, let them do their thing till they're all baked off. In the meantime, I'm going to get the calamari and the cod prepped up for frying. So the calamari is super fun. I've already broken down 3 of them and I have 2 left. And what you do is you just grasp it by the cap and grasp above the little eyeballs and you just pull gently to pull the head off. There we go. There's also a little bit of cartilage in there that you want to get out. So you just reach in there with your finger and you'll definitely feel it. Yank that out too. Next thing to do is reach in there with your finger again and make sure you've got all of the innards out of it. Very good. And then finally, peel the skin off the cap. It peels off really, really easily. You just kind of pierce it with your fingernail and you know, pull it off. I love calamari. It's one of my favorite appetizers to eat. And so it definitely had to be on this Artisan Admirals platter. And with the head, I want to kind of pull it down, straighten out its tentacles, and cut right below its eyes. Discard the head and look in those tentacles to see if there is something called a beak. It's a little hard part. Fortunately, there's not one in there, so I can move on. Throw that back on there. One more to go. Once again, pulling the head out, pulling out the cartilage. This is fun. Food's fun. Reaching in there with my finger to make sure I've got all the innards out. So interesting what comes out of this. Now I'm going to peel off that skin. That is not going to taste very good if I leave that on there. There we go. And again with the head, cutting just below the eyes. You want to make sure you cut below the eyes because that's where the ink sac is. And if you hit the ink sac, you're going to dirty up your cutting board. Checking the inside of the tentacles for the beak. No beak. Nothing to worry about there. Final step with the cap before you slice it is to rinse it under some cool water. Helps to make sure all the skin's gone. Want to reach in there with your finger, once again, with the cool running water. And just really make sure you've got it cleaned out well. There we go. And then the cap is what forms the calamari rings themselves. This is the more familiar shape for calamari. I like to slice them in little kind of thick rings, about 1/2 inch thick or so. And those are ready for frying at this point. And the final thing to prep up here is the fish for the fried fish. Take my fishy hands and my fishy cutting board here. And I'm just going to cut off some nice little angular bits here. These are going to be really yummy, dipped in that pecan batter. Oh, yum. Your sweetie's going to love you. That's that. Now, it's time to take my fishy hands and my fishy cutting board and get it all cleaned off over here. 2 more pieces of equipment that you're going to want here. You're going to want a platter affixed with napkins or paper towels of some sort, and then you're going to want a heat-proof version of the same thing. Let's take a look at these. Ooh, wow, those look really good. I like the color. It's almost a dark amber. And it smells really good too. Give them just a moment to sit there and drain off. And then we're going to pour them out over here on the paper to really finish off. Another important call out here is that you want to salt them while they're still sizzling. This is the best time to do it because they actually absorb the salt. If you wait too long, you just don't get the same result. So I'm going to finish up my other 3 here. Yum, that's fun. So while I'm waiting for those to fry, I'm going to finish off prepping my little yummy calamari and fish over here. And fish and seafood and lemon are just best friends. You want to squeeze fresh lemon juice over just about any type of seafood that you're serving because it enhances the flavor and it helps to kill any germs that might be there. It's just a good best practice. Really douse them. Good, good. Those look really good. They're about 3/4 of the way done, so at this point I'm going to opt for a broil function just to make sure that the crumbs get a little bit browned on top. These look nice and happy. A good rule of thumb with fried food is that when it floats, it's done. Now these have gone in there for about 7 minutes. Yours could take anywhere from 5 to 10. Just want to look for that color and look for the float. A couple minutes to drain. And over here onto the paper. Hit them with some salt while they still sizzle. Sizzling salt. There we go. I'm actually going to take these now at this point, put them in a little heat-proof pan. We're going to keep them warm in the oven. So I've got my oven set on warm. It's about 170 degrees. I'm just going to pop them in there and let them stay happy in there while the rest of the food fries off. Let's take a little look at the shrimp here. That broiling did them very well. So now a nice brown crust on top of the stuffing. I'm gonna pull these guys out of the heat and put them in the oven as well to stay warm. Yum! Can't wait for my sweetie to try those. Let's make some calamari. So a couple things here. You're gonna wanna take the calamari, set yourself up with a little breading station. First thing that you're gonna do is dunk the calamari in a bit of flour. I find it easier to work in small batches with something like calamari because it's kind of unruly. Tossing it in the flour allows the batter something to really stick onto. Shake off the excess before you put it in the batter. Give it a little dunk. This is where it gets a little bit messy but fun. And pull out the little calamari rings, just a couple at a time. And drop them in the oil. It's a little bit more dangerous, but I prefer to put them in the oil directly rather than on the basket, because a batter like this can stick to the bottom. And that's not really any good. They cook really quickly, so you're going to want to work in small little batches here. Want to see them golden up just a little bit more than that. Yum! Pull it out and take a look here. Wow, those look yum. A moment to drain. And then over here to the paper. Toss. Yum. Next batch. Look at these. Oh, those look yummy. Here we go. Tossing the salt there. Gonna go get my warming pan. Because now these guys are ready for holding as well. These are exceptionally good. I love this recipe. The beer in there just adds such a good complexity of flavor. And the little crispies, those are yum too. Back into the oven with this. Also gives the deep fryer a chance to reheat. Now it's time to batter the cod. Very similar process, actually identical process, if you will. Take the cod, make sure it's all coated in that lemon juice, dredge it in some flour. I'm just gonna do one first to test it out. Dunk it in the batter, and drop it in the hot oil. So it's always a good best practice to start with a small batch so that you can learn about how long it's going to take to fry. In the meantime, while you're waiting for that first one to cook off, you can go ahead and get dredging the rest of the cod. Now, I was intending to use halibut with this recipe, but unfortunately, my seafood guy had sold out of halibut. So I went with the cod instead. The point is that either of the fishes will work great for this recipe because they're similar in texture and flavor. Go ahead and dunk these in the batter now. They're not as wiry and wieldy and wild as the calamari, so they're going to do better sitting in here. There we go. Get them all good and happy. The batter just clings to the flour and then clings to the fish and makes a beautiful breaded result. I'm going to get my hands cleaned off here. Lots of hand washing in a meal like this. So we're about 4 minutes in. That's not quite the color I want to see. I'm gonna go ahead and put it back in. I'm gonna guess a couple more minutes on that. Hey, you know what? We're almost done. So I'm gonna get ready for plating. I'm gonna pull out these beautiful clams. Oh, wow, those look yum. And my jicama cucumber coleslaw. Get that in bowls. One more loving toss. Nice little scoops. Little scoops of love for my sweetie. I think you're gonna really enjoy the way that the radishes and the jicama and the cucumber all play off each other. It's gonna make this a very unique flavored coleslaw. I hear that my cod is quieted down. That's another great sign that it's done. Let's pull it out here. Ooh, that's a nice color. I like that. So the total cooking time was about 7 minutes. Very similar to the sweet potato tots. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of the cod frying. Mmm, yummy. And just like with the calamari, I'm actually dropping it into the hot oil. Of course, when you drop it into the hot oil, you want to make sure that that last section that goes in is facing away from you so that you avoid splashing yourself with this extremely hot stuff. Mmm. So that's it. That's the last little bit of food to fry off here. So I'm going to wash my hands off and get ready for plating. So while the cod finishes off, I'm going to go ahead and get started plating. Quite a bit of material to work with here. Oh, yummy little shrimp. You guys are so pretty. So I'm just gonna do this on one plate. It's gonna be kind of like a little tapas style or a little bite-sized food, a little cocktail food, finger food, whatever you wanna call it. We'll start by putting the sweet potato tots in the middle and the calamari over here on one point. Yum. Oh, I can't wait to eat all of you. Rotate a little bit, and then I'm going to pull these shrimp off gently. Kind of layer them in along the side, like so. Impressive. Your sweetie's gonna dig on this one. Sure, I've got enough room for my cod here. So these little cod are sounding and looking very happy. Now it's important to note that when you're planning this meal out, your organization and your ability to mise en place everything or prepare everything in advance is going to make the presentation and the end result way smoother. If you just kind of work in the same order that you've seen me working in, you should have some pretty good results. A little salt, a little toss. These guys are ready right now. And now the final element of this magnificent edible piece of art, these tasty little cod. Yum. What a gorgeous presentation. And you gotta love the pecan crust on the cod with the Cajun seasoning. A little tartar sauce, should be able to find some room for it right about there. Yeah, it'll work. That is a seafood feast for lovers if I ever saw one. Serve this one up with a nice crisp white wine. Think Pinot Grigio or maybe even a Riesling. Now call in your sweetie. Bye, apron. Thanks, honey.
You're welcome.
Yay, it's dinner time.
Wow, that's so good.
Got all sorts of fun things in here for you tonight. Some cod, stuffed shrimp, sweet potato tots, calamari.
That's right.
Of course, clams on the half shell. You like it?
My goodness.
Yeah? Yay! Yummy.
Yes, it is. This is such a hot kitchen.
So thanks for joining me in my hot kitchen tonight. Have fun turning up the heat in your kitchen, and I'll see you next week. Night night.